Diablo 4 is changing the game with the new season, Season 6, The Vessel of Hatred, the DLC, coming out just in a few weeks. And here I have all of the changes for you, everything you need to know, and there are a lot of them, so stay tuned, of course, to know them all. Now, there are going to be timestamps down below, so skip what you want, watch what you need, and let's jump into this so you know everything you need to for the new season coming to Diablo 4. All right, starting out here, we have some huge leveling adjustments. Now we have a new max level being 60, of course, when of course it was 50. And after that, you'll start earning Paragon points just as you did before. Now this means we have 10 additional skill points to spend in the skill tree per class. Where are these going to go? Well, there's a few things to keep in mind. Ultimate abilities, which we haven't been able to level up before. Usually you can level up a skill up to 5 times to make it level 5. Ultimate abilities, you haven't been able to do that. Now you can. So there's a spot for 4 more points. And we also got some new skills for every single class in the game. And of course, I imagine some of these will go into our passive points that we can use to make our character even stronger. Next, we have some changes to the Paragon system. Now, overall, we now have a cap of 300 Paragon points. Now, we have a whole section dedicated to the Paragon board and all the changes that are coming. So we're going to just keep this brief right now. But the biggest thing is now Paragon points are account and realm wide. Now next we have some changes to the world tiers, and the biggest changes, world tiers are no more. We have a new difficulty system from level 1 to 60. Now we're going to talk about difficulty after level 60 once we're in the Paragon stage, and that's different, but we're going to be talking about that a little bit later. Now let's focus on 1 to 60. So there's a new tier of difficulty. So we have normal, hard, expert, pentient. So normal and hard are unlocked from the beginning. And then we have expert, which is unlocked by completing the prologue, so super easy to unlock. Then pentient is meant for that level 50 to 60 grind, those 10 levels. Now, in my opinion, most people are going to be in hard or expert. And pentient, to me, Pentient's very hard, but pentient feels too shallow, too little. It feels like it needs to be for a bigger chunk of the game than just 10 levels. Now let's take some time to dive into the leveling process and the difficulty after level 60. So it's not really leveling at that point. You're just getting all of your Paragon points, and we have a new difficulty scale to go off in the end game. And this is going to be Torment 1 through 4. So as we can see here, it's tied to pit level, and a lot's changing with the pit, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. So Torment 1 beat pit level 20, Torment 2, 35, 50, 65. You can kind of see we're progressing further down the pit. We unlock higher level difficulties. Pretty simple, pretty easy. And pit level is now tied to glyph experience. We're going to talk about that later on, like I said, when the Paragon changes. But you're going to be doing the pit for different reasons in this season. It's no longer going to be giving you masterwork material. We're going to break that down more. You're going to mainly be doing it to upgrading your glyphs, and you're going to be running the pit a lot. Now let's break down how these torments come into play when actually playing the game. So levels get harder by applying penalties and resistances to armor. So at Torment 1, minus 250 armor and 25% all resistances. As you can see here, it basically, you add 250 every time. So 250 to 500 to 750 to 1000. As you can see, it continues with the resistances all the way to minus 100% resistances. It's going to be very, very hard to survive on Torment 4 without a very, very strong build, which of course I'm going to be bringing you. We're going to have a ton, and I mean a ton of build guides for all of the classes that you need to play that are super strong, that are fun, most importantly, and that are super easy to get into. It's finally time to dive into some of these Paragon changes, so let's break down everything you need to know. Now keep in mind, of course, these are now account wide, which is super nice for that season, so let's break this down. So we now have a new maximum of 5 boards, counting the starting board. And speaking of starter board, all classes have a new unique starter board for them, and we're going to look at that picture down below as you can see the new starting boards. So what does this new max of 5 boards mean? It means that the value of the board is now the priority. Used to, we would prioritize using the glyph, so we would skip and don't really care what the board is if it was super easy to get to a spot for a glyph. But now with the max of 5, the legendary node in that board is going to be more important to us now that we're limited in the total number of glyphs that we can use. And speaking of glyphs, of course, glyph XP is now gained from pit runs. And how this works is each time you defeat the pit, you have 3 attempts to upgrade your glyph. So it's no longer that you get XP and it takes a certain amount of XP to upgrade that glyph. It's every time you complete the pit, you have a chance to just upgrade your glyph a level. And as we can see here, completing a pit that is 10 levels higher than your glyph guarantees an upgrade. Completing a pit level 20 levels above your glyph gives you chance at multiple ranks to your glyph. So what does this mean? This is good for a couple reasons. So say you're starting out, you have a very, very strong build, and you finally are able to go and farm your glyphs up. You've gone through 1 through 60, you're a very strong build now, you have some good gear, you can farm at above 10 levels and guarantee to get a glyph upgrade every single time you run through a dungeon. Now this means that you'll be ranking up your glyphs pretty fast, but something to keep in mind now, glyphs now have a max rank of 100, meaning there's a lot more grinding to do. Now, of course, upgrading at level 20s plus is even better because now you have multiple ranks for each chance. Now, one thing to keep in mind is Nightmare Dungeons no longer give glyph experience, but they're still in the game, and they have a new purpose. See, Nightmare Dungeons and pit runs have swap places. Used to Nightmare Dungeon would give glyph XP, now pit runs do. And what did pit runs used to give? Masterworking materials, and of course, Nightmare Dungeons now give masterwork materials. Now for the next topic, we have item and stat changes. So let's jump into this. The stat squish. Numbers have been significantly reduced across the board. So what does this mean? On the items yourselves, you're going to see that they're doing less damage. So when something lists an actual damage amount, it's going to be smaller. Now this doesn't mean you're actually doing less damage percent-wise. It's just everything's been reduced. Mob health, boss health, trash health, elite health, everything's been shrunk down. And what we're actually going to find out is the stat squish was kind of a fail, as we're still going to be doing billions, and I think we're even going to be still doing trillions of damage in Season 6. And it's just because of all the stuff that they're giving us new that's just boosting our power even more. So while we did have a stat squish, we're still going to be doing stupid numbers that are almost too hard to comprehend. Now, next we have kind of a big one. Sacred items are no more. There are now only 2 item types in the game, normal and ancestral. You have normal all the way up to level 60, and you have ancestral once you're in Torment 1. Now, ancestral gear in Torment 1 is extremely rare and becomes more prevalent as you go through the higher tiers of Torment all the way till Torment 4. Now we have more changes. The normal item cap is now 750. So you get all the way to level 60, you're going to be farming items at the item cap, which is now 750. And once you get to ancestral, item levels are still there, but they don't matter so much because all ancestrals drop at level 800. You can never get an ancestral that is below level 800 and are guaranteed to have a greater affix. So everything will be GA'd, which is a huge, huge plus. Now keep in mind here, now it's not guaranteed to have 4 greater affixes, but it's guaranteed to have 1, meaning we're going to be completely loaded on gear and have much, much higher bonuses. Now, ancestral items also contain higher level aspects than the normal gear and can be masterworked the same 12 times. Now, gems are receiving another rework, and I do think this is because of runestones, because we're going to be using runestones instead of gems on most of our armor pieces. So as we can see here, maximum life is being removed off rubies and stats are being redistributed elsewhere. Weapon tempering affixes are now multiplicative, focusing primarily on double damage, chance to hit, and similar affixes. Offensive tempering affixes are additive damage, so staying the same, and then size and duration affixes have been moved to the utility category. Temporary recipes are now limited to 4 affixes per recipe. And then here we have an example of what a new drop would look like on Azure Wrath. As you can see, it is an ancestral, it's at 800, it is GA'd, and we can see the 15% attack speed is higher than would normally be possible because it is an ancestral. Now next we have RuneWords, the new system coming to Diablo 4. And let's break this down. It's an iconic system from Diablo 2 that if you've played the game, you are familiar with RuneWords, and they're coming to Diablo 4 in a sense. They're not the same. They've put a new twist on them with a resource, which not the biggest fan of, but it is what it is. They like having these resources and these gates to using these new abilities. And it was a way to limit the classes from becoming too powerful and something that they couldn't really foresee. So in here we have 2 runes. We have runes of ritual, which specify actions you need to trigger to gain offering the new resource tied to RuneWords. Now this could be something like cast a skill with a cooldown and then you get 30 resource. Now we have the next runes, the runes of invocation, which grant powerful effects but cost offering. An example would be critical strike chance or cast an ability from another class, which we're going to talk about here in a second. And so these worked together. So when you combine a rune of ritual and a rune of invocation, you get a rune word. So you have two runes, they come together, they now make a rune word. It's a pretty simple system, can be kind of annoying to trigger. I'm not a huge fan of having to do specific actions. It's just putting more limitations on ways you can build your class. Not a huge fan of it. It is what it is. It's what we're working with. I think RuneWords can be great, and I think this is the first evolution of RuneWords we're going to see. And I think over time they're going to get reworked and updated, and I think eventually they will be really, really good, and they will be really fun to use. I think this is just the first iteration, and I do think it is a good change to the game. I like the innovation. I like where we're going. I just think it needs some work. So runes can be socketed into an item with 2 sockets, which makes sense, and must have 1 ritual and 1 invocation, just like we talked about. And you can only use a rune in 1 slot and only 2 rune words. So if you're using a rune, you can only use it once, and you can only have 2 rune words together. So you can have 4 runes in total. And one of the biggest things here is each class now shares 2 skills using the runes of invocation. And we're going to break those down here in a second. But just a sneak peek would be like sorcerers can now share their teleport with all of the other classes in the game, meaning just like in Diablo 2, you can now teleport all across the map to your heart's desire and zip through everything. Now there is a little bit of crafting associated with these rune words, and as we can see here, use 3 of the same rune to craft a new one. So if you're struggling to get a new rune, you use the same ones you've been getting, 3 into 1. Obviously, not a great trade, 3 into 1, but if you're really desperate trying to get a new rune, it is possible. And here we have something that's a little interesting, is runes can now be used to craft mythic uniques. Now this is not replacing the old system where you would use resplendent sparks. It's just another system to craft mythic uniques, another way to do it. Now I don't know exactly how that's going to work. Hopefully we'll get some more details on that, but I'm curious to see if this is going to be better or if just using the same old resplendent sparks is going to be still the best. Now here we have more details about what skills are going to be shared between the classes. Now let's break these down. So first we have the sorcerer's teleport being shared, and it does include being unstoppable as part of the teleport. And then we have the biggest one probably is going to be Barbarian's Enhanced Warcry. Warcry, honestly, so Ohm and Jaw are going to be probably the 2 most powerful runes in the entire game. Everyone's going to be using these. Now that is going to wrap up everything you need to know for Diablo 4 Season 6. Now, of course, we still have around 2 weeks before the game's going to drop the new update. So as more information is going to come out, you're going to see more videos from me. Of course, we still have a campfire coming out where they're going to lay out a ton of information for us to dive into. And you're going to be seeing more videos, more shorts, and a ton of content coming to Diablo 4 from this channel. So if you enjoyed, please like and subscribe and keep an eye out for future content. Thank you, and I hope to see you guys in a future video.